In chapter 3 of Poppy Playtime, we come across a character who we only get to talk to for just a couple of minutes before he was brutally eaten alive by the smaller smiling critters, which do nothing but obey the prototype and Catnap's commands, and that character is Dog Day. But what if Dog Day didn't die? Could he have helped us throughout the game, or was he already too hurt to the point where he would have never survived? Well, the first thing that we have to talk about is the fact that he was being tortured by Catnap in such a brutal way that they had a belt tied around his waist in order to keep his organs in place. And in doing this, they kept him alive for way longer, most likely so he could be tortured either for information or as an example for the other toys never to disobey the prototype or Catnap's orders ever.
A myriad pairs of eyes are on you now. Watching, waiting, hungry. They want nothing more than to crawl beneath your skin and eat away at you bit by little bit. Catnap, the prototype is his god, and this is what he does to heretics. These little toys follow Catnap to avoid that very fate.
Which then begs the question, if the smiling critters had never eaten him alive and Catnap would have let us escape with Dog Day, would he have even survived? Well, it seems like he might have, because once the smiling critters eat him, he starts crawling on his hands at a pretty fast pace, to the point where we have to full on sprint in order to escape him. And even then, he still follows behind us pretty closely, meaning if he was able to bear through the pain, he could have actually been a pretty strong character. It's just that he would only be able to crawl around on his hands. But considering the fact that he was crawling around at the same speed that the other characters like Huggy Wuggy and Mommy Longlegs chased us at, then Dog Day actually would have been a pretty strong toy. And considering the fact that he was able to kill us in pretty much 2 seconds like every other character who chases us, he would just be different from his normal self, but still a very strong toy. So what would happen if we had Dog Day to help us in both the ending of chapter 3 and chapter 4? Well, in chapter 3, it seems that he might not have been able to even help us at all. At the very end of the chase, the only way we're able to get away from him is by using a purple hand jump pad over a gap, which Dog Day most likely wouldn't have been able to make it over unless this dude had some insanely strong hands. But because of the way that he crawls at us, maybe, just maybe he'd be able to make the jump, but most likely he wouldn't be able to. And we'd have to go a different way through where the smiling critters were trying to kill us, and then Dog Day would have been eaten by them anyway. But assuming he was able to survive, how would that change the events of chapter 3 and chapter 4? Well, in chapter 3, we only really have Poppy and Kissy on our side. But if we had Dog Day on our side as well, it could have made the Catnap fights a lot different. Although Catnap is like 10 times the size of Dog Day, he might have tried to fight Catnap, which could have given us a worse ending, because the way that it happened in chapter 3 seemed to be a setup for us to fight Catnap, and for the prototype and maybe even Harley Sawyer to observe how we fight and how strong we are. Because of the way that the boss fight is set up in the end of chapter 3, there is no way that wasn't done on purpose. I refuse to believe that there's this giant 4-hallway system with smoke that blasts out, which just so happens to make Catnap go away. And also the fact that he's walking at us at like 2.5 miles per hour. But if Dog Day attacked Catnap and got into some kind of fight, then it's possible we wouldn't have made it up the elevator and into the boss fight room. And instead, we would have been running somewhere else in the factory. And this would have changed how things went and could have led to Catnap killing us. Catnap had the ability to kill us multiple times, but for some reason he didn't. For example, when he's in the office and jump scares us, it sends us into some kind of nightmare since the gas mask flew off our head, which means it's possible Catnap would try to kill us since the prototype's plan would have failed and we'd no longer be useful. But let's say Catnap didn't kill Dog Day and somehow managed to survive and come down the elevator with us in chapter 4. Would that change any of the events that happened? It honestly seems that the main thing that Dog Day would change is the kill count in the end of chapter 4 when Safe Haven explodes. Because although he does seem to be somewhat strong, I don't necessarily see him tagging along with us like a dog and helping us during our attempts to kill the doctor. Even though he didn't help us do that, and he's 10 times as powerful as Dog Day is.
I need you to stop the doctor. To take his Omni Hand. We'll need it for the generator. And if you want red smoke in the Foundation, you'll need it too. Head for the infirmary whenever you're ready to leave. There's sewer access inside. That's your safest path to the No Man's Land. And to him. But if you need to catch your breath, our safe haven is also yours.
So in reality, it seems that Dog Day would either be doing something else or would have stayed behind in Safe Haven in order to heal, similarly to Kissy, but he would then be caught in the explosion and end up dying, just like all the other smaller toys. And because of the back of the notes in chapter 4, it tells us that Hoppy was killed. It makes me think that the prototype was wiping out all of the smiling critters anyways, but the only reason that Dog Day survived is because he had somewhat of a loyalty to the prototype in the beginning. In a tweet made by Mob, we read that Dog Day, by all accounts, was unconditionally loyal to the prototype, which means that he could have helped Catnap and the prototype in the beginning, but was later punished for treason or abandonment, which could be why he was tortured, but all of the other smiling critters were killed instantly. But this is interesting because we don't see Dog Day attack anybody in the Hour of Joy tape. So is it possible that he was working with the prototype until that point? Well, also in the tweet, it says that this could be a case of keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So Dog Day might not have been on the prototype side in the first place, but was playing along in order to survive. But because he's been tortured all of this time, it's possible that his opinions have changed and the physical pain was enough to break his mind in order to get him to serve the prototype. So it's possible that if Dog Day were to try to help us in chapter 4, he could instead be helping the prototype and just pretending to be on our side. So if he really was on our side, the prototype most likely would have killed him immediately due to the fact that he's trying to help us. So in reality, it seems that Dog Day either way would have been killed and suffered a terrible death, regardless if we were able to save him in chapter 3 or not. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and click on this video right here.